YouTube, what's going on? It's Juan Gotti here with another Washington Commanders video, and in today's video I'm coming on here with a video where we're going to be talking about 5 Washington Commanders players that I personally think needs to have a big training camp in order to make this roster. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. But before we do, make sure you go down below, leave a like on this video, subscribe if you're new, and turn on post notifications so you get notified when I upload a video about the NFL, or in this case our Washington Commanders. We're on the road to 5,000 subscribers, so hit that subscribe button again if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to follow me on my social media links that are down below in the description. Thank you so much. Let's get straight into today's video.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Louis. I'm about to fuck this joint up. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. When I hop in the booth, they fuck with my sound. Put that shit on the scale, we taxin' pound for pound. Nigga keep dissing, put them in the ground. My shit in your ear and tell me how it sound. A nigga too smart can catch me out of bounds. Let's go. That bitch got cooked like some chicken. And he lying, he not rapping what he living. Yeah, that's my cousin, but this shit a business. Work that bitch out just like we doing fitness.
So 5 Washington Commanders players that I think needs to have a big training camp to make this roster. Or in other words, 5 underrated players that are on the outside looking in headed into this year's training camp. So, number 1 on my list, in no particular order, obviously, I'm going to start with cornerback Danny Johnson. As we know, man, Danny Johnson provides a lot for this team, whether it's in the slot or it's in the kick return duties. And I personally feel like he's never really got his chance to show what he can do in the slot on a consecutive basis. He only steps in when someone goes down or if we're in a certain package, okay? I personally think he has the ability to be that slot corner for us, man. I really do. Again, I allude to this Green Bay Packers game like I do all the time. Last year, he was holding his own versus Devontae Adams, all those guys that they had and that was stepping up in the slot. And he was doing a really good job, especially in the red zone. And I think he deserves his shot. Now, I don't think they're going to give it to him just based off of the moves that they made this offseason with drafting, Christian Holmes, with having Corn Elder, a veteran guy that we always bring back. And Benjamin St-Juste is now going to be the nickel corner, which I wouldn't mind. Ben St-Juste is a dog, man. He can play whatever. I like my juice on the island, outside. He can do both, like I said, outside or inside, but I think he's going to be that number 2 outside corner. And then we should have Danny in the slot. But, again, Kendall Fuller, I know they really still like Kendall Fuller, although I personally feel like he's lost a step. I'm not mad at them for that, though, because, again, we know Kendall Fuller can play both outside and inside. Although I would prefer it to be Danny Johnson and Juice be on the island, on the outside. But however they want to do it, they're going to do it their way, and I trust them. But I think Danny Johnson deserves his shot, and I think he needs to have a really good training camp in order to make this roster. Now, again, like I said, he can provide a lot in the kick return game. Me personally, I wouldn't mind having him back there because I know he's going to be able to field the punt/kickoff, and he's going to take a knee. He's going to be smart. Remember, he was our kick returner in 2019, and honestly, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's rare to get a kick return. We only got one last year from DeAndre Carter. Unless your name is Jamal Agnew or Cordell Patterson, you're not really returning kicks that much. So I like Danny Johnson because he's going to take the knee, man. Give me my offense at 25 and let us go to work. So maybe he makes the roster because he can provide in the slot and in the kick return game, but he's going to have a big camp. Number 2, I want to say Antonio Gandy Golden. As we know, AGG, he transferred from wide receiver to tight end this offseason. We drafted AGG to be a wide receiver in 2020, and he really never panned out at the wide receiver position. So now, this is his last chance to show what he can do, and we decided to switch him to tight end. Now, as we know, he has the height for tight end, but he has to put on the weight, and maybe he can be that receiving tight end that we need, but we just drafted Cole Turner. So I don't know how that's going to work. I think he's obviously on the outside looking in, but Logan Thomas is going to be on the shelf more likely than not to start the season for the first couple weeks. So I don't know if that gives him a better chance to make this roster or if they're going to roll with, Sammy Reyes. I personally don't know how that's going to work out, or if they're just going to go with John Bates and Cole Turner to start the season, because like I said again, maybe he's on the physically unable to perform list. I don't know though, because maybe they just sit him out for the first couple weeks, that being Logan Thomas, until he's ready, but they still like dress him and whatnot, just don't play him or whatever. I don't know how they're going to do that situation because we don't know how far along Logan is with his ACL recovery at this current moment. So that should be interesting to watch, but I don't know if that boosts his chances to make this roster. If all of those fails, he is going to be on the practice squad, but then again, that's not really secure because let's say he has a solid camp. You know, let's say he has a solid preseason, but he's just not quite ready to make the active roster at the tight end position. Then you put him on the practice squad, but whole time, other teams were looking at him and saying, hey, man, what does this Antonio Gandy Golden guy have? Now you're exposing him to the rest of the league if you put him on the practice squad, and then someone else could pluck him off. So, again, it's a tricky situation with AGG, but first it starts by him having a good training camp, and he has to have that if he wants to have a chance of making this roster. So, moving on to number 3 for me. Number 3 is a guy that I defend like I'm getting paid for it. It's a guy that I defend and not name Terry McLaurin the most. These two guys, Terry McLaurin and this guy I'm about to name here, are the two people I defend the most, like I get paid for, and that is Jared Patterson, man. Jared Patterson is going to have a huge training camp in order to make this roster. Now, it's unfortunate because I feel like he's did enough to show that he can make this roster, that he deserves his spot on this roster, man. Last year, he came in training camp, had a really, really good training camp, transferred that into a really good preseason, and then later in the season where he got more snaps and more carries, he showed that he could really, really play at this level, man. Not only in the run game, but he can pass catch. And for his size, he's a really, really good pass blocker, man. So I really think Jared Patterson showed what he can do to make this roster. And it's unfortunate that he still is getting overshadowed by the likes of other guys in that running back room. And I wouldn't be surprised if we kept 4 this year. I'm actually hoping we keep 4 backs, man, because you're not going to cut Brian Robinson, who you just drafted. You obviously just extended J.D. McKissick. He's not going to work, and Gibby isn't going to work because Antonio Gibson is still running back 1. So I think this is maybe the year that they keep 4 backs. And again, JP, he can also kick return and punt return. So he provides a lot for this team, man. And I really think it's not fair that he's getting overlooked. But he's just going to have to make them eat their words again. He's going to have to go out there and have a really, really good training camp and a really, really good preseason. So he can show to these guys, yeah, man, I'm the real deal, man. I didn't only do it for 1 year, but I did it for 2 years. So shout out to JP, man. Hopefully he makes this roster. I'm rooting for him like crazy, man. But he's another guy that I think is going to have a really, really good training camp in order to make this roster. Moving on to the next person, Alex Erickson is another guy that I personally think needs to have a really, really good training camp in order to make this roster because he provides the kick return ability, but he's going to have to show more than that. He's going to have to show that he can play the receiver position. You know, he's going to have to show that he can be that slot guy, some packages, because you're not going to just give a 1 wide receiver spot away to just a kick returner. You know, you're going to have to show that you can provide more, similar to what DeAndre Carter did last year. We weren't trying to just give 1 wide receiver position away to DeAndre Carter just strictly for his ability to return punts and kickoffs. He had to show that he could play at the receiver position, and he did that in the training camp, and he did that in the regular season. So Alex Erickson is going to be that this year's DeAndre Carter from the aspect of he's going to have to show what he can do as a receiver so he can make this roster, you know? So he is going to have a really, really strong training camp to make this roster. And the last person that I think needs to have a really, really strong training camp. It's just 5 guys. We can talk about it all day. We probably can come up with 10 to 15, 20 guys that needs to have a really strong training camp. But I'm going to narrow it down to 5. And the last person is similar to Alex Erickson. It is Dax Milne. Now, it's kind of reversed for Dax Milne because he's shown that he can play at this level as the wide receiver position, as a slot, I should say. But he's going to show, can he be a kick returner? Remember last year, especially at the open practice, if he went, they had him fielding punts, but I don't think he really got his opportunity to show that he can field punts. Maybe he did in the preseason, if I remember correctly. He was back there. But he's going to have to show that he can field punts and he can actually catch and he can return when need be and just be smart about everything. But I personally feel like Dax Milne could be that guy that could also field the punch just like Jared Patterson or Danny Johnson. But those are 5 guys that I personally think needs a big training camp to make this roster. And I'm really excited about this year's training camp. We're almost there. We're like about 25 days away. And these are just some guys that I personally think needs to have a big training camp to make this roster. So Danny Johnson, Jared Patterson, Antonio Gandy-Golden, Dax Milne, Alex Erickson are my 5. Definitely, like I said, we can come up with 10 to 20, but we'll be here all day. Who is your 5s? Who are your 5 people that you think needs to have a really big training camp to make this roster? And tonight at 6:45, we'll be live on my man Pedro Schmidt's channel, so make sure you guys come through for that. As always, it's boy Wanagati. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section down below. We're on the road to 5,000 subscribers, so hit that subscribe button again if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to follow me on my Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The links are down below in the description. Thank you so much. I'm out. Peace.